Yeah.
Like a personal desire or curiosity to achieve something.
Okay, nice. This group, what did we say?
I said like a mini purpose.
A mini purpose as opposed to a big purpose.
It's like it builds like something better usually, because you're trying to reach something better.
Okay, so you're saying there's like a goal. Motivation is to take you like a step further in that goal, essentially. Okay. This group over here, what did we say?
We said that it's like a feeling that needs to come from oneself in order to pursue some sort of process.
Okay, so it needs to come from the individual.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no such thing as extrinsic motivation.
That's what we're positing.
Positing. Okay, and so the concept here is you have intrinsic motivation, which we will get into, maybe not today, of you have a personal desire, drive, and then extrinsic motivation is you have external drivers, external factors that would then push you. So you may not really care, but you have something that's pushing you to do the thing. If you are a little kid who hates swim practice, but your mom drives you and forces you to get into the water every day, maybe you don't have personal intrinsic motivation, but you have external extrinsic motivation. This group, what do we think?
We just said it's like the drive or the want to do something or achieve something.
Okay, so drive and want. Okay. And then back there?
It's like a purpose that gives you like a drive to.
A purpose that gives you a drive.
Wait. Yeah.
Okay. Everything's valid here. Do we agree with that?
Well, I think also just more generally, like the reason behind whatever you do, whether that's like implicit or implicit, or explicit, like whether you know that's your reasoning or not, it's like just whatever pushes you on your path. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes. And then over here, finally.
We just said like it was like a drive to complete something.
A drive. Perfect. Okay, nice. This is going to lead us into exactly where we want to go. So obviously, language nerd here. So motivation comes from the Latin movere, to move. A lot of our different points here talked about progression, drive, movement, even if we didn't say some of those words explicitly. And so when you think about where this word came from, people trying to understand this fundamental question, why is it that things happen in the world, right? We can look and see Newton's style, an apple falls from the tree, okay. But what is it about human beings? So when we talk about motivation, it's this primary, it starts from this primary question of what is it that moves things? Why do you move for whatever set of specific reasons in any particular way? So again, let's try to think motivation as a sort of blanket word for movement. We can think about intellectual movement, progression, or whatnot. And in a more updated version, we can think of motivation also as the process of goal-directed activity. I have said goal-directed activity a lot this semester. This is where it really comes into play. Goal-directed activity that is initiated and sustained. So it has to have happened. You are motivated to move, and then there has to be some either continued motivation to continue to move forward. Does that make sense? Okay. And so theorists in what motivation is nowadays have talked about it in terms of being more broad. So something that energizes, directs, or sustains behavior that aligns with what we've just talked about. Alexander, my advisor, who's also at this university, has called it the psychological processes involved in the direction, vigor, and persistence of behavior.
Sorry, I just need to ask, is your advisor the one that's been writing like all of these readings?
Yes. Yes. So when you complain, I'm quite amenable, having been in your position many times before. But yes, her office is like right across the corner. And so if on Thursdays I come a little more frazzled, it's because I have just had like 3 hours of meetings with her. But yes, so in regards to this idea of motivation, does it all seem to coalesce together? Is there any point are there any anomalies here? Any things that you would have originally or generally thought, maybe this doesn't fit into my general notion of motivation? This is an open-ended question. There's no. I'm just interested to see what your idea is. Yes.
In the
Elliot.
first definition, the word sustains behavior, like, because motivation can wane, right?
Can wane? Yes.
So, wouldn't it not sustain behavior then? Because like the behavior is what you're trying to do, but if motivation wanes, then motivation is an unsustainable, metric.
I mean, I'd say motivation is still what's guiding the behavior, it's just you're losing motivation.
So it sounds like what you're saying is you may have a motivation to do one thing, one goal-directed action, but then I think, Cole, maybe what you're saying is you might have additional motivations or updates.
And I feel like motivations can also conflict, which then leads to sort of like where you get into these impasses of not doing anything.
Right, perfect. Okay, this is exactly where we want to go. So we're going to start with our discussion of motivation with drive theory. Now, drive theory is not particularly well regarded in educational psychology now, but it's where our ideas of motivation, at least within the last 150 years, have really come from. And so when we hear needs, does anybody think of anything else, any other model in regards to needs, what people need, what people want?
Hierarchy of needs?
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, we're going to get there in a second. But let's think about needs. I bring that up to say let's not think about that. We just want to think simplistically. We might think of a primary need as something that you just need to survive, a secondary need that might not be essential to survival. At least that's how it was conceived with drive theory. Now, we believe that things are much more complex, that human beings are a lot more complex, and so we will revise this in our discussion now, but this is a good place to start. And so you have these basic needs as a human being in your context. We can't forget that we are a human being in context, whether we are hunter-gatherers in a hunter-gatherer society or whether we are in a university setting. Something triggers that. There's some process that triggers a drive from these basic needs. We could exist in a world where we have needs and we never actualize them and we just kind of sit and rot, right? I'm sure there are organisms that did that, but evolutionarily they did not survive. So there is a drive that progresses out of needs, and there are factors that influence how we deal with these drives or how we understand them. The intensity of the drive and the persistence. This is what we were talking about. Maybe you have there's a drive here. We can think of the drive to drink water. If you are parched, you will drink water. You will have a persistent drive to do that, even if it's not beneficial to you. Slight tangent, but sailors that go across the sea that run out of clean drinking water, knowing that if they drink salt water, that will further dehydrate them, will still drink salt water because the drive is so persistent and so intense. The physiological drive is so intense that they can't prevent themselves from doing that. Now, when we think about our lives, we might think of a persistent and high-intensity drive, which might be maybe checking our phones all of the time, or as we, navigate from room to room, needing some sound to be playing from the phone or something like that. Or maybe a drive is I need to do well in this class, or et cetera, et cetera. Does this sort of make sense that there is an antithetical spectrum here of intensity? There is a spectrum of persistence that then influences how the drives manifest. Right. And then the question is, from this drive, we have a direction where we try to address or achieve a goal. So if the drive is, if the need is, I'm dehydrated, the drive is, I feel a drive to resolve this uncomfortable feeling of dehydration. The goal is to drink water, and so I'm directed in that action. And so I believe this is what Cole was saying. You might have conflicting needs or drives. You might have two drives. One is to perform well in class, another one is to go to the restroom. At one point, restroom beats doing well in class, you will go to the restroom. But then once that's resolved, you have that other residual drive, which is influencing your goals. Do we understand just this general model of drive theory? Yes. How do we like it? It's okay to be critical. I like critical. Let's take a little bit of time to think about it. Yes.
I think it neglects like outside forces that like may be preventing people from reaching their goals, like social, cultural factors. It's all very like internal, which is important, and I believe is like one part of like motivation and goal acquisition. But like there are social factors also at play.
Yes, I would agree. Where would you put that in this model?
I think probably like around the direction area, like almost like social factors could be like another thing pushing in one direction or like pushing the opposite direction or like even pushing up and just like somewhere totally different.
So you're saying you might have the same needs, you might have the same drives with the same intensity and persistence, but the people in the room will influence how you actually go about achieving that goal. It might actually also influence the actual goal itself.
Yeah, and not just like also people in the room, but if we're looking at like social, cultural, like economic factors that could just like
Right.
literally just like prevent someone from like making that direction even if they want to.
Right, and so that would include not just the things in your environment, but how you perceive the things in your environment and what sort of information is there. I think that's great. And that is, yes, okay. We stated this already. This leads to goals and this leads to actions that people have. But Cole, your point is correct. And so this leads us into this idea of a more sophisticated model of not direction or goals yet, but what are the set of facts or categories of needs that a person has based on the context in which they live in that would influence every other downstream action here. We focused a lot on, or just in this previous conversation, we focused on the sort of environment that influences how somebody acts or how the environment shapes how somebody acts. But we can go one step further backwards and think about how changing our needs would influence this model. One criticism is that this is fairly abstract and not very robust. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, like, wouldn't all these, like, this is clearly very, like, abstract.
Yes.
Wouldn't all these have various, like, inputs and from the various stimuli that everyone's having in their lives? And
Could you be a little more specific? It just
Yeah.
sounds like you're saying inputs happen, it changes how people perceive the world and their goals and actions.
yeah, I mean, like, it like, inputs, what's going on in someone's life changes your needs, it changes the intensity of the drives, how persistent you want to be, it changes goals. I mean, I feel like this is clearly like an oversimplified model that like all these have like a function of whatever's going on in the person's life. So.
I feel like I'm struggling to understand. It sounds like what you're saying is this is an oversimplified model, and all of the inputs that we get as a human being will sort of go through this process. So is there a criticism of the model, or is it an agreement with it?
I guess, like, I don't know, I feel like for the level of abstraction that this is trying to do, it does an okay job, but it clearly doesn't address, like, what Cole was saying, and what we've been saying with, like, all the other inputs that affect every single step of what's going on.
Yes, I would agree, right. And so I think this is where Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes in, because if we start off with just having basic primary needs and secondary needs, that's a useful way to begin to look at the world. But now we have an antinomy problem. We have a clear binary of what different needs are, but as human beings, we're a lot more complex, and we can't just say this is primary, this is secondary. There might also be secondary needs that in particular contexts might become primary, or some complex relationship. It also might be the case that all of our primary needs, that there's gradations at which will be useful in making a prediction about how somebody will go about their life. And so this is the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. How many of us have seen this before, at least colloquially? Some of us have, some of us haven't. The general idea here, we're going to go through some of these layers, but the core point is that you have basic needs. physiological needs, and that in competition with each other, certain needs will end up winning. You can only go like 3 days without water. On the 4th day, you're not going to care whether your job is self-actualizing you or how pretty you look maybe, or handsome, or knowing or understanding epistemology, or your self-esteem, or whatever. You might not even care about, shelter. You're going to go find water or you will die, right? This is the basic physiological need. If somebody is attacking you, the biggest, most important need is physiological safety, right? If somebody's saying mean words to you while they're hitting you, you will probably try to defend the physical stuff before the mental stuff. Does that make sense? Just basic. And so as you have competing needs, this is sort of the theorized, hierarchy of needs. Now, in actuality, this is a generalization. There are people for whom physiological needs might be lower in relation to like love and belonging or esteem, or somebody that's very chivalrous and says, I will go defend the honor of my girlfriend or whatever. Like, definitely is not putting this at the highest need, right? But generally, this is how Maslow developed. This is the sort of idea that supports Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, sort of drawing some criticism here that nothing is as perfectly defined as someone would like it to be. We don't necessarily need to know these two, but these are just further categorizations in the literature. So, as always, it's important to know the history of how we got to where we are. So this was developed in 1943 by Abraham Maslow, an American psychologist. The set of needs here and the sort of structure was in relation to human motivation. So what is it that motivates people? He was looking at drive theory and thought, hey, this is not really reflective of what we see in human beings. It's too broad in general, or at least this initial set of factors or needs. And so, like I was saying, it was a major departure, but it was also a major departure from things like behaviorism, which we've covered earlier in the class, which was a lot of just like stimulus response. There are just basic human behaviors. Maslow's saying, hey, I think there's something more sophisticated happening inside the mind of individuals that we can further categorize. You're going to engage in this action or this behavior if, this need is threatened. And you can categorize them in a number of ways. Does anybody know what this is, psychoanalysis? Does anybody have any idea what's happening also at this point in time? This is not going to be crucial to the class, but it's just a fun tidbit of psychological knowledge that I don't think is too tangential. 1943, 1940s, 1950s, psychoanalysis.
Psychoanalysis, that's like Freud stuff.
Freud, yes. And who took the mantle from Freud? Does anybody know? Do we have any continental philosophers, psychoanalysts in the room? Has anybody heard of Jung? Yes? Carl Jung? Yes? Does anybody know anything about him? If not, he was a student of Freud. There was focus on the analysis of like dreams, people's thoughts, kind of like trying to patchwork some understanding of people's motivations and so forth. The concept of introvert comes from Carl Jung. Extrovert comes from Carl Jung. He had a lot of other fanciful ideas as well. But the point that I'd like to draw here is that you had people that were really just looking at like the behaviors of animals and people. You had people that were looking they were trying to analyze the constructs of the mind, like dreams, free recall. Do we know what that is? Free recall was a psychoanalytic technique, I think created by Freud, who was like, okay, I'm going to say a word, what's the first word that comes to mind? Right, we kind of did that with the analogy problems, right? Have you seen a Rorschach test? Yes, where I will present you an image and I'll say, what do you see in this image? Right, and that's supposed to, at least by the psychoanalytic theories of the 1940s and 30s and 40s and 50s give me some estimation as to how sane you were or what's going on in your mind. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is in between these. It's like trying to come to a more established categorical view of what are the drives that lead people to make decisions. This might be too far out. This might not get cognitive enough. And again, just knowing good history is helpful to understand why this developed in the way that it did. Everything's in conversation with all other things all the time. And so unlike psychoanalysis, which was focused on people with different mental disorders, which at the time, like bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder and major depressive disorder, schizophrenia, were called wild things like hysteria, and was also incredibly sexist. One of the common solutions for some of these, which is actually really interesting, was just different air. You just go to a different country and just breathe different air, and that's supposed to cure you.
I know a guy that did that recently.
Oh yeah?
Well, my dad's like friend, because it wasn't for a mental illness, it was for like his kidney or something.
That's interesting. Now there is like actual value in that, but not in the way that people think. But that is certainly tangential, and we will not go there. But the core point here is it was not in relation to deficiencies or perceived deficiencies like IQ was originally developed for, right? This was to understand just how general, quote unquote, healthy people engage. In the hierarchy, you propose that human needs are arranged in a specific order of prepotency. This is just nice to know cool words, which just means influence, potency meaning strength, pre means like the foremost, so like the thing with the most influence. Yeah, and we've covered this. And so then we come back to this hierarchy of needs. Are there any general questions about the history, how it was developed, why it was developed? No? Okay. So just some further explanation. We really don't, in this class, we don't need to know these because this is not the set of needs that we really care for. We're going to get deeper into theories of motivation. But this was the progression. So you're not going to need to know these for a midterm. You're not going to need to know this for your learning portfolio. I just think it's useful to, we're talking about this model, it's useful to have an understanding of some of them. Not all of the needs are listed here. It's also important to note that there's been a lot of work that has tried to extend these, like further categorizing different needs that people have within these larger categories. Are there any questions here? No? I think that's good, and I think that's okay. Okay, so just to summarize here, we have drive theory, drive reduction theories, which represents there's a problem, you have to go address it. We went through that problem first, second order needs, progresses into actual human behavior. We have Maslow's hierarchy, which sort of bridged that with more sophisticated categories. And Miller, the reading for today, pushed on the growth side of this sort of model coming from Maslow's hierarchy in relation to specific motives and how that predicted real-world student behavior. So looking at what students actually do and how we can further categorize those to understand the underlying motivations that lead to their specific actions. This one is an important point. This might be an important slide. So, before we get into what Miller is about, I think it's interesting to take a few minutes to talk amongst yourself, now that you have these different ideas about motivation, to question what motivates you in school, out of school, and whether there is extrinsic motivation in your life. We will talk about this in our little groups for a few minutes. We'll open it up to the class as well. Try to just naturally answer the question And then I think it would be really interesting to maybe think about it in relation to, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, are specific needs being satisfied, or are they not? Are those the things that motivate you? And try to like bridge those just general ideas that you have together. Any questions about that? No? Okay. Let's do that. I will walk around, engage in fun conversation with you guys.
I think generally speaking, desire to have a positive impact on others motivates me in all ways.
I feel like
And that includes like specifically like a family and stuff like that. Being able to have a future. I think a lot of what motivates me in school is like being carries a lot of weight. What's that like?
Nice.
Yeah, what about being like the desire to like surpass expectations?
Yeah, just the desire to do for graduate. Also to do well.
What motivates you guys?
Not fail, some people just don't care. So that's different.
Biggest thing for me, you want my honest
Yeah, I do actually.
failure.
So that
Oh, yeah?
entirely
Okay.
No matter what
We'll get into that.
you learn, it's always gonna be that because it
Interesting.
really gets to me.
And so it's like there's like a deep like stress response. It's super uncomfortable.
Yeah, extremely unhealthy in my opinion. Like when it gets to a certain point.
The
because
feeling that you have, you think it's
the
unhealthy?
drive, like,
The drive is unhealthy.
I feel like
Okay.
it becomes toxic sometimes because
Probably, yeah.
it
If it's
isn't
all
just
failure.
motivation, it becomes
Avoidance.
it turns into anger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In the gym, for example, like when I'm like going through it, I like look possessed and like
Yeah.
not
Okay.
happy.
I understand that.
I'm going
that.
through it right now.
Oh, yeah? Okay. The lat pull down, yeah, in the
That put
thing.
me out of commission for a week.
Oh, did it? So there's this psychological phenomena that is more pronounced in men, actually. It's called alexithymia. It's where the processing of emotions or complex emotions gets reduced into anger. And so that's like a very common thing.
Have you ever heard of a villainer?
Yes. I will see that on.
They got him in a good place. Sorry.
It's winter. No. It's good. It's good to like get into the questions of motivation. Like identifying like what it is, though, I think is like the first step to actually addressing it, because it's not healthy. It's not going to be good. But yeah, no, I do think. Yeah, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah,
And if
sorry
you
for being like.
no, don't.
toxic.
No, that's good. That's good. No, we're all there. But yeah, no, I do think knowing what it is like the most important thing. But yeah, okay, all right, everybody, and we're gonna get into that too. So I just want to hear, because I only was able to talk to one or two groups. They're both unfortunately a little negative. What motivates you in school? Huh? Tuition? You're paying a lot of money?
yeah, that's what I said.
I think that's quite legitimate, and I would hope that was a motivator for a lot more people. You're only here once, Oh, let me turn off this music. And you are paying a lot of money. Anything else? We'll go Peyton, and then we'll go Cole.
Like doing better than your friends on tests, like
Damn. I respect it. This is a safe space. Okay, we will get into that. Cole.
I think for me, it kind of depends on the aspect of school. Like in terms of like participating in class and like the classes I choose, my motivation is more intrinsic. Like in terms of like how much I push myself on assignments and stuff, that's more of like I guess like this is also intrinsic, but more of just like a deep-rooted fear of failure, and then also just like more society and stuff. So I think it just depends. It's like it's not just like one thing where school's like into one basket
Nice. Okay. So where would you? So it depends on the specific part of school.
Yeah, like what part of, yeah.
Um,
Like I feel like if we didn't have like if we were like not in a capitalist society and like we all existed in a vacuum, like I would well, there's some classes I would still take and some classes I still wouldn't, and I would probably still like learn as much honestly, but I wouldn't like do certain assignments that like I realistically like just like to do, like not necessarily in this class, but like in certain other classes.
right. So it sounds like you're saying some of these would fall in this like knowing and understanding, just for knowing and understanding. Peyton, it sounds like what you were saying falls into this like esteem needs, or would you?
And then also loving and belonging, kind of.
Right. And then Natalie, it sounds, where would you put tuition? Would that be safety needs? Like, is it the idea of like money being a scarce and important resource? Or would it be, maybe that one defies categorization. I don't know if anyone has any.
I don't know if I would put it under any of those categories.
That's good, because this isn't the perfect model and we're not going to be working with it, but it's interesting. Anybody else, going back to this question here? Yes, we'll go back there and then we'll come up here.
I think like parental expectations and also
Nice.
societal expectations, because I don't want to be
A bum.
yeah.
Respectable. One of the world's greatest philosophers was a bum. A lot of them were bums, actually. Diogenes. Anybody know Diogenes? Anyone know Karl Marx? Yeah. Okay. Slight tangent. This one's actually funny, unlike the other ones. He was followed by the KGB. I don't think the KGB existed. He was followed by the Russian Secret Service at the time, and because he was like a provocateur. And the report that they have on him, which you could find online, is like he sleeps in until like 2 o'clock, and he never takes a shower, and he just is talking with people all day, and he just writes all night and reads and drinks. And this is him.
How did he fund his lifestyle? 'Cause
I actually don't know that. Actually,
It's just rich already.
but his whole thing was like how class is like.
okay, this one might be tangential. Maybe I shouldn't have gone down that road. But yes, understandable. However, maybe being a bum is not the worst thing in the world. Got to defend the bums out there. Now, what motivates you out of school? We'll just run through this one very quickly. Anybody talk about this? Oh, yes.
I think seeing a tangible result, like whether it's in the gym or just like a creative project.
So seeing a tangible result, outcome-based, goal-directed based. Okay, who else had something? Yes, Terrence.
I mean, for me, it's the same thing as in school being, I guess falling into like the love and belonging category.
Love and belonging. Okay, nice. Okay, respectable. And does anybody feel that there's a lot of like extrinsic motivation or relationships to others that influences you? Yes, Khadijah.
Can I answer the out of school?
Oh yeah, sure.
I was gonna say free time.
Uh,
Having more like free time motivates me.
oh, okay. So to engage in more work, you will engage in work to have free time,
Yeah.
and that motivates you. Okay, so positive experience later. Yes. Did you have something?
You're saying if other things.
Yes.
Like, not really for school, but like, my mom will like annoy me if I don't do things, so like that would be like my motivation sometimes.
Nice. Okay, so to get her to stop,
Yeah. Like,
or to make her feel proud. Which one is it?
No, not to make her feel proud. Like she like reminds me to do stuff, and then like it has to stop eventually.
Someone in that position. Sometimes it doesn't. Anybody else? Yes.
Except my dog, because she's not like a family dog. She's just my dog. I feel like I kind of have to have like somewhat put together life to take care of a dog.
Yes.
Yeah, my dog.
Yes. To adequately take care of another living organism. Yes. Did you have something, Ava? Or?
I think others can like my team can motivate me, like outside of school, just like playing for them and I guess like playing selflessly is like a motivation for me.
Right. So you're this larger system to satisfy whatever constraints to, maybe if you're not motivated to win, knowing that your teammate really cares and they have a lot at stake in this, it matters to you. Okay, perfect. This is all perfect because we are going to further classify this with respect to goal orientations. So there are 4 different goal orientations: mastery, performance approach, performance avoidant, and work avoidance. So what are these specifically? This gets into, again, these modern conceptions of motivation. Mastery goals are goals that focus solely on competence and learning for its own sake. So we had the Maslow's hierarchy of needs that really didn't classify everything that we were looking for, especially in regards to education. Mastery is focused on, of these new goals that we're going to discuss, mastery focuses on learning for its own sake. So what is this an analogy to for other things that we've discussed in class from the past? Let's make a connection here.
I guess you could say KV.
Knowledge building, right? Yeah, you wouldn't say it's necessarily the exact same thing, but you would probably say if you're engaged in mastery, you're probably engaged in knowledge building, right? Maybe you're engaged in deep processing strategies because you care for the thing. And then we have performance goals, and this goes into some of the things that we were talking about. We have performance approach, which is the first performance goal, which is to demonstrate competence in appearances of intelligence. So I don't really care for learning for its own sake, but I want to be seen as being intelligent. I want to be respected by others for whatever skills or whatever scores I've had. So think about some of the comments that people have made. Even think about your own comments. And just with these two, think, do either one of these classify, these motivations with regard to being in school, outside of school, and outside of it. The other one is, the other performance goal is performance avoidance, which is to avoid demonstrations of incompetence. You can think of it just being the opposite of performance approach and performance, it's just the opposite of performance approach. So it's not that you care about looking smart, you just don't want to be identified as being the odd person out. You don't want to be the anomalous person. You don't want to look incompetent. And we understand what incompetent means. Unable to do the tasks at hand. And then the last one here is work avoidance. So it is to minimize effort and to do as little work as possible. So the key takeaway here is we have to think about the context. This is about learning. When you're in an educational setting, or you're in a system or a scenario where you have to learn. Some people, and this, it's not that you as an individual only fall into mastery or performance or whatever. At different points in time, given the context of what you're engaging with and your prior experience and also the constraints, right, all of the social factors, sometimes you will be more aligned with a mastery goal. Sometimes you will be more aligned with a performance goal. Sometimes you will be more aligned with a performance avoidance goal or a work avoidance goal, right? I went to a housewarming party over the break. People were talking about things. When people are listening to each other at a dinner party, do they really care for mastery in learning about the other people? Do they care about demonstrating competence? Do they care about avoiding incompetence or work avoidance? Anybody have any idea? Just trying to apply this in a real world scenario. If you're at a dinner party, do you care about really learning what people's lives are like? Do you just want to demonstrate competence? Do you just want to avoid being incompetent? Yes, Elliot.
I think that it would be performance avoidant because people may share personal or professional updates to convince others that they're competent in some way or to showcase their life update to avoid seeming incompetent.
Yeah, they're clout chasers.
Yeah.
They're quote unquote stunting, right? Is that something? Yes, you guys know what that means? You so to stunt, is to be like to posture. Yeah, does that make sense, Cole? You get me out of this.
Honestly, for me, it depends on how interesting the people.
Yes, right, yes. So at any point in time, for any task, it could be any one of these, but at least for me, the focus was more aligned with what Elliot was saying, avoidant. My strategy at parties is to just like find someone that I actually am interested in and hopefully, enjoy the conversation. But there are people who, it seems like the whole function of being at a dinner party is to posture, right? Yes, Claire.
You could also be work avoidance. Just go for the food.
Go pet the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, in this economy. But yeah, so this is applied in just some we're applying this now in just some very broad example here. But when we think about like being in our major, when we think about the work that we're doing here, like if I ask somebody to answer a question, maybe if we were to categorize it, we may not know the response, but we're just going to say something to avoid looking bad in front of our peers, et cetera, et cetera. Do these 4 goals just generally make sense? Yes, Terrence.
I have a question about the learning for its own sake.
Which one? This one?
Yeah, so does that mean you can't have any other motivation besides like just learning, a desire to learn the information? Because like, I don't know, I feel like there's very few things, at least in my life, that I have no other motivation besides just, learning the specific content for my own curiosity.
I will say that the people who put this together, their answer would be that people fall into these categories. Now, is that legitimate? Do we feel that to be legitimate? It sounds like what you're saying would be a critique of this sort of very rigid structure. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Would anybody defend this being rigid and saying that you cannot be mastery oriented while also having some elements of performance avoidance?
I think it's natural for people to fall into multiple.
And to fall into it could be multifactorial, right? Yes, that's a legitimate criticism that I and other people have of this literature. Now, the question is, anything with educational psychology, where's it being applied to? So like if you have kids across the world, different countries, different levels of education, it's going to be really hard to nail things down in specifics. So like if you're going to put forward some intervention, you might have some set of actions that you would classify as being mastery, some that you would classify as being performance, avoidant, or whatever. And you could get like a rough estimate as to like what students are actually engaged, like how they're actually engaged, to what level, to what degree. And that's actually one of these, the goal orientation packet. And so we can criticize it firsthand. Yes, wow, look at that, perfect transition. So you took this, right? This was the 20 question one, right? I just want to make sure that it printed out correctly.
Yeah.
Perfect, okay. So you should have all completed this. What I'm going to ask you to do is a little bit of math. So there are 20 questions. There are 4 goals, right? So there are 5 questions that align with each goal, and you can see them here. What we'd like you to do is to go add the points for each of the following set of questions. So like, what was it, a Likert scale? So it goes 0 to 9. So if I put 5 for 3, if I put 3 for 4, et cetera, so I'm just adding whatever the raw number I got was, and I'm totaling that. So if I put 9 for 3, 9 here, 9 here, 9 here, 9 here, I'd have 54. I'd have 45, actually. And then you just do the same. You just do the same for each one of them. Let me know if you have questions. And the idea is that in the way that this measure was developed, that this is, whichever one you score highest in, is your goal orientation with respect to your educational goals. Yeah, I'm sorry for the people in the back for which this is harder to read. What we get? Do you agree with it? Think so? Do you agree with it?
Yeah, I do.
This is not the person I know.
Oh, yeah?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That is work avoidance. Okay, we've got like 3 to 4 minutes, so if you're still tallying up, tally away. And we'll just end this class here. Make sure we'll end on this topic. Make sure, but before, don't pack up yet. We still have 4 minutes, and I like to keep you here. Keep the social agendas paper as well for next week. Keep both of these for, not next week, for this next class. So yes, okay. So you got a goal. Is there anybody that got a goal orientation that they didn't agree with? Or did it work generally well? Did it align?
I don't like the getting one.
Oh, we will get there. We will get there. We will get there. But just this initial question, did anybody get something that did not represent them or that they feel did not represent them? Remember, this is what they represent. No?
I mean, I don't think any of them can fully represent you. But
Right. But I just want to make sure. Because part of the criticism that comes up every semester and that I like to levy is what you're saying. It cannot. So I just want to see if everybody feels aligned, then I guess, Miller and these others are right. But Khadijah, yes. But you got one of these that you did not agree with aligns with your goal directedness. Which one did you get? So you got work avoidance, and you do not feel like that aligns with, which one do you feel like most aligns with you? Don't know? Okay. Yes, Terrence, and then I'll have one final. Please don't pack up yet. There's still people speaking. Let's be respectful to each other.
I just wanted to say, I think some of these questions are very targeted towards, schoolwork specifically, and that isn't necessarily someone's motivation, even for their career at this point.
Right.
If I'm a senior, I'm probably more focused on either grad school or jobs right now than I am my classes.
So you might get, your mastery might be suffering even if it would be your predominant one.
Or I'm just providing a reason as to why the work avoidance might not be representative of someone's.
Perfect. Okay. We are almost out of time. I would like you to think about this. I would also like you to think about criticisms along the line of what Terrence is bringing up and what Cole's bringing up, and we're going to open up class that way. Yes, be critical, but also if things do align, there's no need to be hypercritical. This is how people have conceptualized motivation in educational psychology.